Welcome to chemistry. In this video, we're going to learn about matter. Chemistry is the study of matter and how it interacts with other matter. In this video, we are going to answer two questions about matter. We're going to look at what makes up matter, and we're going to learn how to classify matter. So first of all, let's find out what is matter made of. If you ask any chemistry teacher, say, hey, what is matter made of? Their answer is probably going to be, well, matter is made of atoms. And they're right. But we know that atoms are made of three major subatomic particles. There are protons and neutrons, and there are electrons that make up atoms. But we can even go further. The protons and neutrons are made of particles called quarks, and the electrons are made of particles called leptons. We're getting into particle physics when we're talking about quarks and leptons. If you asked a physicist, what is matter made of? Their answer would probably be quarks and leptons. Now that we know what makes up all of matter, let's learn how to classify it. And what I have here is just a chart classifying matter. And it can be divided into two major categories. And we're going to spend some time defining each of these later in the video. Matter, if it is made of only one kind of a substance, only one kind of a particle, we call it a pure substance. Sometimes people just call it a substance. And if it's made up of two or more kinds of particles, it's going to be called a mixture. Pure substances can either be elements or compounds. So we're going to have this up here, and you can go ahead and fill this in on your flow chart, but let's get some definitions down. Let's start with a mixture. Okay, if matter is a mixture, it's going to be a combination of two or more substances. They're not going to be chemically combined. And the substances will keep its own identity. That is what a mixture is. So an example of this would be putting sugar in water. You still have water and sugar, and you can get your sugar back. But we'll talk about all of that later. Now, if it's not a mixture and it's a pure substance, the pure substance could be an element or it could be a compound. Let's start by looking at the definition of an element. An element is when all the atoms in that matter are the same. And maybe we could be a little more specific. All the atoms have the same number of protons. An element cannot be broken down into simpler substances by chemical or physical means. So an element is when all of the atoms are the same. A compound would be a substance, again, it's a pure substance that is made up of two or more elements that are chemically combined. What we're going to do next is we're going to show some concrete examples of mixtures, elements, and compounds to kind of give you a concrete idea of what we're talking about instead of just learning definitions. As we discussed in the previous video, matter can be divided into pure substances and mixtures. Because we can't see atoms, we need to have some way of visualizing these pure substances and mixtures. Today, we're going to use a model or a visual representation of a scientific phenomenon to visualize pure substances and mixtures. Let's talk about elements first. We defined an element as a pure substance where all the atoms are the same. So here's an example of an element, and we're going to call it element B. It's going to stand for Bolt. Element B. All the atoms are the same, and it's a pure substance. Let's look at another example of an element. We'll call this element W for washer. A pure substance where all the atoms are the same. And one more element, element N, and you guessed it, nuts, a pure substance where all the atoms are the same. Now, what if we add atoms of different elements and they're not combined? So what if we have atoms from element W with element N? We would call this a mixture. This is when we have atoms of different elements that are placed together. We could throw in element V into our mixture. What do we have if atoms of different elements are chemically combined? And so to chemically combine elements B and N, see how they're attached to one another? We would call this a compound. Again, this is a pure substance. All the particles are the same, but they are chemically combined elements. So they're combined with one another. We could have even chemically combined 3 elements and had a compound. We would call this probably BWN. Bolt, washer, nut. Again, it is a pure substance and it is a compound where the elements are chemically combined. We can have mixtures of compounds, so we could have that compound mixed, so it's not chemically combined with the element N here or with the element W here. And we could even add another compound where it's chemically combined BN to our mixture. I hope visualizing pure substances and mixtures using this model has helped cement your understanding of these concepts.